Hi everyone, this is a video lesson on futures which are again part of derivatives. We have already discussed on forwards in our previous video and we'll carry on those concepts in the video of futures. So we will first do a fast forward recap of what we discussed in forwards. We will discuss with an example which we discussed in forwards. Let's say the price of shares of Reliance today is 100 and there is Mr. Ram who's an aspiring Warren Buffett and he will get around 100 shares of Reliance from his father after 30 days from now. So he wants to sell them when he gets those shares from his father, that is after 30 days, but he is worried that the prices may go down by the time he will get those shares from his father. And on the other side there is Mr. Sham, who is an astute businessman. He will get some money as profit from his business after 30 days and he wants to invest that money from the profit in the shares of Reliance after 30 days from now. But he is worried that the price of Reliance shares might increase by then, that is they might become 110. But now as of today the price is 100. So we have two persons with opposite views. Ram, who wants to sell those shares, is worried about the decrease in price of shares. Sham, who is interested in buying those shares after 30 days from now, is worried about increase in the price of shares. So what they do is they enter into a bilateral contract which is called a forward contract, and as per that contract Ram agrees to sell 100 shares of Reliance and Sham agrees to buy those 100 shares from Ram at a price of 105. So that price 105 is a agreed price today and is called a future price, because at this price the transaction would be carried out in future. Now the characteristics of forwards which we discussed in our video on forwards are: firstly, they are the contract directly between two parties, there is no third party involved. The contract size, that is 100 shares of Reliance, and the future price, that is 105, are agreed between two parties directly. So as per their convenience or as per their thinking, as per their need, they would agree upon the contract side as the future price. The settlement date between the two parties is also decided by both of them. So they both have requirement to buy or sell those shares after 30 days from now. So they have entered into a contract where they will conclude the transaction after 30 days from now. So you see, this is a very customized contract as per the needs and the convenience of both the parties, and such contracts are called OTC contracts, or over the counter contracts, that is one-to-one kind of contracts. The drawbacks, or rather the major drawback of forwards, is that there is a risk of default which is called counterparty risk. Now what is that counterparty risk? Now in this contract, since Ram has to sell those shares after 30 days from now at 105, suppose at the settlement date, that is after 30 days from now, the price becomes 110. So now Ram would think that why should he sell at 105 when he can sell at 110 to anybody, because the price today is 110. So he might get greedy, he might not fulfill his obligation, that is he might not sell those shares to Sham at 105. So this is called a counterparty risk. Now there is a concept of futures which mitigate this counterparty risk. The details of futures and how do they mitigate the counterparty risk, that we will discuss in this video. First we will discuss the basic concept of futures. So we know that Ram and Sham wants to enter into a contract, but this contract in futures which they will enter into will not be directly between both of them. Ram will enter into a contract with stock exchange to sell those shares, and Sham will enter into a contract with stock exchange to buy those shares in future. And they do not know each other. They are unknown to each other. They are just carrying out the transaction which needs to be concluded in future with the stock exchange. Now what would be the agreed price in this contract? In the forwards contract they agreed on a price of 105, but when they enter into a contract with Stock Exchange of India, it all depends upon the demand and supply, that is at what price they can sell those shares in the future. if there are more number of people who are willing to sell shares in future, then obviously the supply is more, demand is less, and hence the price at which they would have to sell would be less. But on the other hand, if there are lesser number of people who want to sell shares in future, but there are more number of people like Sham who want to buy shares in future, the price at which they can sell based on demand and supply would be more. So entirely the price would be determined by the exchange depending upon the demand and supply. Now just put this thought into your mind that it's not only Ram and Sham, there are thousands of people who would be trying to buy or sell shares in future on the stock exchange. So all that combines together to generate a demand and supply situation. Now what about the number of shares? Can Ram and Sham enter into a contract for 100 shares exactly? The answer is again no. The number of shares in a contract are determined by Stock Exchange of India. So if a Stock Exchange of India determines that the minimum number of shares in the contract be 500, then Ram and Sham would have to enter into a contract in which they agree to sell and buy minimum 500 of shares at some price in future. And if they want to buy more than 500, then they would have to buy or sell in multiples of 500. That is 1000, 1500, 2000. Now what about the settlement date? In the forwards example, the settlement date was decided between both Ram and Sham that it would be around 30 days in future. But in this case, in the futures, the settlement date is determined by stock exchange. Stock exchange always or the contracts which are entered into with the help of stock exchange always has to be settled by the last Thursday of the month. So there cannot be any customized dates. It has to be settled on the last Thursday of the month. So the characteristics of futures as we compare to forwards are: firstly, contract is not directly between the two parties. The two parties enter into a contract with stock exchange and the parties do not know each other. The contract size, that is number of shares, which in forwards were 100, would be determined by exchange. So one has to enter into contract with the agreement to buy or sell those minimum number of shares which are in the contract size. The settlement date is always last Thursday of month. The parties cannot agree on any random date. So what we see is that, are these contracts customized? The answer is no. These are standard contracts. Everything is defined by a standard, that is the contract size, the settlement date, and the parties are not known to each other. These type of contracts are called exchange traded contracts, which means they are traded on exchange and they are standard contracts. Now how do futures mitigate the counterparty risk which we encountered in forwards? Now when Ram would enter into a contract with stock exchange to sell shares in future, he will submit some upfront money to the exchange. You can call that a margin money or a safety money which stock exchange will keep with itself in case Ram or Sham does not fulfill their obligation. So what happens is, suppose Ram has entered into a contract to sell 100 shares at 105. So the contract value in this case would be 100 into 105, that is 10,500. 100 is the number of shares and 105 is the future price. So both will submit around 20% of 10,500 as the margin money, that is around 2,100 to the stock exchange. So the situation would be like this: Ram and Sham would both submit 2,100 to the stock exchange. Now suppose the price becomes 110 at the settlement date, which would be the last Thursday of the month. Now Ram would have to sell those shares at 105 to Sham, but if he does not fulfill his obligation and gets greedy that he can sell them at 110, why should he sell them at 105? In such a case, what Sham has to do is, Sham has to buy shares from exchange at 110, which he otherwise should have got at 105. So Sham is paying 5 extra per share. Now what exchange would do is, exchange will pay him 100 into 5, that is 500, to compensate him. So his net cost remains the same, that is 105. So how will stock exchange settle with both Ram and Sham? Stock exchange will pay back 2100 minus 500, that is 1600 to Ram. So stock exchange will deduct money from the margin money which Ram has submitted with the stock exchange, and to Sham they will return 2100 plus 500 equal to 2600. So Ram would be compensated for his loss from Ram not fulfilling his obligation. So this entire procedure is called cash settlement. Why cash settlement? Because in this Ram is not selling anything in actual to Sham, and Sham is not buying anything actual from Ram. So all the transactions which are happening are just in terms of cash. Now there are two types of settlements: cash settlement and physical settlement. Cash settlement we already discussed, in which only cash is exchanged and no underlying, that is no shares or commodities or currencies are exchanged. Now in physical settlement, the actual underlying is exchanged between the two parties. Now let's see how the physical settlement works. Now in a physical settlement, Ram would sell shares at 105 to Sham. Now obviously Ram does not know Sham, so what Ram would do is Ram would send its shares to the stock exchange, and stock exchange would in turn deliver it to Sham. So in a way, Ram sells 100 shares of Reliance at the price of 105 to Sham. So stock exchange after that would return the margin money, that is 2100 to Ram, because he has fulfilled his obligation, and similarly it would return 2100 to Sham because Sham has also bought those shares at 105. Now what is a long and short position in futures? The person entering into the contract for selling shares is going short, and such a position is called a short position. The person entering into a contract to buy shares is going long, and such a position is called long position in futures. Now just remember this important concept: the person who is going to sell shares in futures is expecting a price decrease. That's why he has agreed to sell those in futures. And the person who is agreeing to buy those shares in future is expecting a price increase. That is, the person who is going long or who is entering into a long position is expecting a price increase. Now how to calculate the future, the profit and loss in the futures? Now suppose the price becomes 110 at the settlement date. Now the Ram could have sold these shares at 110 to anybody in the market, but he cannot sell those because he has already entered into a contract. So what he would do is he would sell those shares at 105 to Sham. So the loss which he would incur is 110 minus 105 equal to 5 per share, or the total loss is 5 into 100, that is 500. Similarly, Sham, who would have got those shares at 110 from the market, would now get those shares at 105 from Ram. So his total, so his profit per share would be 5 per share. His total profit would be 5 into 100 shares of Reliance, that is 500. Now what's the profit and loss of seller in a general? Now you can see in this screen that the seller is expecting by the future date, the seller is expecting that the price would decrease. That's why he has entered into a contract. But if the price increased by the settlement date, the seller would be in loss. That you can see that as the price is increasing on this screen, the loss of seller is increasing, and as the price is decreasing, as it goes from 100 to 50, his profit is increasing. Now for a buyer, this is entirely opposite. As the price increases for the buyer, his profit increases. As the price decreases, his loss increases or his profit decreases. So the concept is that buyer is expecting that the price would increase by that time, and he has agreed to buy at a certain price in a future. So if the price increases, he is in a profitable position because he will get at a lesser price which he has already agreed 30 days back. Now let's do a concept check what we have learned in this futures video and earlier in the forwards video. Now Ram and Sham enters into future contract sold on the exchange. Ram agrees to buy and Shyam agrees to sell 500 shares of ITC at 110. If the price on the settlement date is 90, what is the profit and loss of both the parties? And this case we also have to find the contract size and the contract value. So let's see how to solve this. First we will find the contract size and then we will find the contract value. So the contract size is 500 because both have agreed into contract to sell 500 shares of ITC. The contract value is 500, that is number of shares, into 110, which is the future price, which becomes 55,000. Now let's calculate the profit and loss. The price at the settlement date is 90, but Ram has to buy at 110. So loss for Ram is 20 per share. His total loss would become 20 into 500, which is number of shares, equal to 10,000. And similarly Shyam, the price is 90, but Shyam can sell in 110. So profit for Shyam is 110 minus 90, that is 20 per share. So the total profit for Shyam would be 10,000. Well, as a follow-up, we will suggest that you read about the concept of futures from any standard book, or on the internet you can read about the derivatives topic. That will definitely have a write-up on the futures. Or you can supplement this video from our notes and you will get to practice more on the numericals part. And we would also like to tell you that all our courses are available on the mobile app, so you can learn anytime, anywhere. You can learn while traveling, you can learn while in the office. You need not be learning on the desktop, and most people try to avoid so that their colleagues should not be able to see it. So very easy, you can just keep learning on your mobile. For any information, you can visit our website www.adutap.co.in. For more videos, you can visit our YouTube channel by the name Adutap. For any query, you can call us at 8146207241. I again repeat, 8146207241. Well, thank you. We hope your preparation is going well and this will give a boost to your preparation. We wish you good luck for the RBI Grade B exam.